Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. I'm joined today by DJ E-Clyps. It's great to see you here, man.
You too, man.
It's going to be fun.
You're going to learn stuff.
We have been checking out Baby Audio.
Yes.
Baby Audio out of Denmark.
Really impressive stuff.
It's a cool plug-in company. It's kind of cool. We've done something different here today. I've kind of taken them and applied them to some of the rock tracks I'm working on. And you took the plug-ins and put them on one of your tracks, right?
Yes.
So what, okay, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I really wanted to put on a kind of really synthy, electronic, kind of 90s throwback kind of track to play with some of the different variations.
Right, so let's listen to some of these plugins and see what they can do. The cool thing about them, at least from my standpoint, is that, man, there's so much going on under the hood with these plugins, but they're super easy to use.
Yeah, and I like that it really cuts down some steps for people who aren't really familiar with certain audio techniques.
So where should we start? What's your favorite one?
I love the I Heart New York.
I Heart New York. You want to do it on your track?
No, I like yours.
Okay. So what I've got here is I've got the drum kit soloed. Here's our dry drum kit, if you will. This was recorded, it's Nick DiVirgilio playing in Sweetwater Studios. So nice on a drum kit, straight ahead rock beat. So I Heart New York does a technique called parallel compression that came out of the New York scene in the 90s. And the idea is that you run your dry track, but then you also squash that track and blend it back in.
Yes.
And it gives you
the drum hug.
The drum hug, yeah, that's the way to describe it. But the cool thing again is that we've got only three really controls here that we need to work with. Spank is the amount of compression. Parallel signal just blends that compressed signal in with the dry signal, and then we've got an output control, and that's it. So we'll start with that bypassed, and then we'll turn it on.
That's why I love parallel compression. It takes a drum track that's already good and it just adds that extra muscle to it.
Just lifts it up and beefs it up and adds punch. Now we can also listen to just the compressed signal or the spank signal by hitting the solo button. So if we play this again, you can hear that's compressed, man. That's.
I think I kind of figure with this plugin, as long as you're hitting it, the spank where it's not going into the red. And I think at that point, when you get into the red, you went kind of too far unless you're going for that kind of feel.
Right. So if we do go too far with it here, let's.
Yeah, at that point, you're sucking all the dynamics
It's really
out.
smacking it, isn't it? But now we can blend that in, though, from our dry signal. So we're maybe hitting it a little harder than we would in a mix, but it gives you the idea. You can bring that fat, really squashed down, dynamically very even signal, bring it up underneath, and it's just like raising the foundation on a house up to the middle of your chest or something.
Yeah, and I think it's really helpful for people who don't understand the process of parallel compression. So to have all of that into one plugin that's really easy to navigate, I think is a really strong selling point of this one.
Right, absolutely. Now let's take a look at another plugin. It's called Super VHS, and it's sort of a combination of a lo-fi and a mangler plugin all in one kind of user interface. So let's turn that on. We'll open it up here, and again, we'll listen to this on the drums. Let's roll those back a little bit. Here's with the plugin bypass, and then we'll bring it in. So there's a bunch of stuff happening in this plugin.
Yeah.
So what all is going on behind that interface?
You've got the heat, which is kind of adding a little analog warmth and distortion to it. You've got the wash, which is adding kind of your room reverb. And then you've got the drift, which is kind of emulating the VHS tape because, and then it fluctuating off of going off of the, what do you call those things?
The reels, just the way the pitch, the way that, yeah, just the reels, right? The capstan, the way it turns the tape.
Because I know in the earlier days before ADAT, they used to bounce audio tracks to VHS, and they would use the outside tracks. And so I think it's kind of emulating that feel with a little bit of tape drift and things, and the flutter and the wow and all that.
Yeah, that's all under that drift control. And then the static control is actually bringing in noise.
Yes, it's dirt. Static and dirt.
Which is awesome. And shape is filtering.
Yeah, but that gives you that nice 8-bit, 12-bit analog.
Lo-fi thing, right?
Yeah.
And magic.
Magic's just kind of the, if you're not sure what to do, hit the magic button and see what it gives you.
It's almost like an exciter, bringing out the top end and just adding life to everything that's going on there.
It also has a little bit of width too. Mm-hmm. A little bit. It's not drastic, but it's in there.
Of course, we can mix this into taste as well. So it's another super useful plug-in because you can really both shape things and add washiness to them, add width to them, and bring in the noise and give you that kind of lo-fi analog feel as well.
Yeah, that and just it, and you know, when things are always so natural and so clean, sometimes you just need that extra little weird twist of dirt to kind of add some spice to a track that may have been a little bit sterile.
Right, right. You can really do it with this one. I wasn't sure what to expect when I saw the Super VHS name. I was like, what is that going to do? Because, I mean, I remember the video cassettes, and I never used them much for audio until the ADAT.
Yeah, and it has that nice little Gallagher look to it. Just like throwback arcade kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
So even if you don't read the manual, you feel like you can just kind of like just doink your way around and figure it out. But I think that's the beauty of these plugins. I think it's not overly complicated. It doesn't require this extensive use of audio knowledge, but at least it gives you a good launch point to get there until you understand the deeper principles of actually what's going on in the plugins.
Right, right. That's exactly right. The manuals are like a page.
Yeah.
Is about all it is, just tells you what each control does. And so they're not difficult plugins to sit down and just start moving knobs, and you get good sounds no matter what you're doing. And most of them, this particular one doesn't, but most of them have presets as well.
Yeah.
So you have starting places for different instruments. Yeah, yeah, all made by major artists and engineers, producers. And so yeah, you got a lot of material to start from as well, which is great right out of the box. So let's listen to one more plugin on these acoustic drum tracks, and that's Parallel Aggressor. And man, this plugin I think is just amazing.
Oh yeah, I like this one just because of the options.
So once again, we'll start with it off.
And the user interface on it's really clean, so you can see what the audio's doing while you're making the adjustments, but it's not like a lot of meters. It's just nice, simple visualizations that help you kind of figure out what you're doing.
Yeah, it's super easy to see what you're doing. Again, we just have a couple of controls, well, 5 controls here, really. The meters are over here, as you'll see when we run this. And you can set it by ear. And that's the other cool thing with these plugins is that they're really easy to set by ear. Just dial it in until it sounds right to you, and it is right at that point.
And that's the beauty of mixing. You know, that way you're not always focused on the user interface. You're really using your ears at that point. Right.
So let's listen to this. We'll play the dry drums. Instant. So what we have here is, again, parallel processing. And we've got 2 types that we can mix with the dry signal. So our dry signal, we can actually solo the different parts. So we've got dry signal here under this fader. We've got compressed, just like is in I Love New York, here, that we can blend in. And then we have heat, which is, as you mentioned before, sort of analog style, distortion, harmonics, that kind of thing. And these are actually the knobs for controlling those. And you set your meters so they're just touching the orange when they are getting signal through them. Let's roll back here again and listen to that segment.
Unless you want to get super spanky.
Yeah, then you can push it way up, right? But you can see we're pushing, you can push the spank way up if we want. But this one lets us go a little bit further because we also have 4 ways we can tailor that spank style, if you will. Yeah. There's more punch here, which I've got turned on. There's extra smack, which is a little bit more presence, a little bit more attack. There's a high pass filter.
So that way your kick drum doesn't get lost in the compression.
Exactly right. And there's also a mono switch, so you can make that spanked signal, mono if you will, that compressed signal, mono, and sit that in behind your stereo drum mix, which is a cool effect. That's a cool sound.
It is.
Now over here on the heat side, we've also got extra hot, which I'm using here, extra hot.
Hot sauce.
We've got a tone control for those harmonics and things that are coming in, and again we have high and low pass filters, so you can shape that distorted, that analog style signal before you bring it back in. But here we've got a bunch of different presets.
And I like the fact that even in the presets, you're still really customizable. Like you can really go in and solo stuff and decide what elements you want to keep and what you want to throw out.
Right, and speaking of customizable, you can even change the color of the interface if you want. Got 3 different choices there.
It's like dark mode for your audio.
There you go. Man, let's switch over to your track and hear what this sounds like on a different approach, a different style of music. I think it's really cool to compare. So tell us about this track.
It's just a real, it's an 808 drum machine mixed with some basic like 90s style kind of synths. Just really wanted to kind of add a vintage vibe just because of some of the plugins that we're using, and to also see how, you know, parallel compression works on the drum bus for more sub-heavy music and, you know, deeper snares, not so much an acoustic set, but more an electronic set.
Yep. Just
to show the versatility of the plugin and how no matter what style of music you're using, it's really applicable.
Right, right. So just to give you an idea of the track we're working with, here is the... This is your stereo mix.
Yes. It's nice and summery.
Yeah, man. So we've got I Heart New York that we've got on just the drum and percussion tracks at this point.
No, the cool thing about parallel compression on electronic drums is that you can really take that kick and it just gets really in your face when you start to add that parallel compression. So drums that normally would sound a little bit thin get that extra body to it when you add a plug-in, and just to have it and just such an easy use interface is really a strong suit.
Right, well let's see what this does. So we'll start with the dry signal, we'll bring in the plug-in, and then I'll bring up the parallel compressed signal so we can compare the signal. Now the interesting thing here is it's actually going to drop down in output until we start rolling up that parallel signal and beefing it back up again from underneath. So sort of counter to what you'd expect, but once you get it dialed, then it's bigger, of course. So here's our dry drums.
You can feel the kick drum now starting to have a little bit more body on that top and the low mid.
Right.
Your snare drums have a little bit more pop, you know, and that's kind of the beauty of the parallel compression. You just add that extra oomph to it.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where you don't really want to hear like a squash signal, and that's the whole idea, is that you're just using it to beef up what's already there, to make it bigger, to make it punchier. And so you don't want to hear a real compressed kind of thing out of it.
No.
You want to use it to enhance what's already there, if you will. Right, so we've got another cool plug-in. How many times can I say that?
They're all cool,
Yet
though.
another cool plug-in, right? This one's called Comeback Kid, and it's a multi-tap delay that allows for a bunch of different shaping and stereo processing. I mean, shaper, flavor, stereo. Once again, the kind of plug-in that this one looks a little more maybe intimidating than some of the others.
Yeah.
But you just start turning the knobs.
That's what makes these plugins fun. Like, you don't have to feel like you're an audio rocket scientist to understand how to get good stuff out of it.
So this isn't on a drum track.
No, this is a talk box track. So it's a kind of like a little ad-lib, just a little sauce underneath. Nothing that's going to be too up front, but it's just still present in the track.
Okay, so once again, we'll start with it dry, and then we'll bring in the plug-in and we'll play with some of these controls and see what happens. So we've got a lot of cool stuff happening here. We've got low cut and high cut filters that allow you to kind of focus it more into the mid range, at least as far as the delay sound is concerned. And then we've got attack, so you can kind of smooth it out. We've got the sustain control, which sort of evens out the echoes so they stay at the same volume. as they, instead of fading out, they kind of hold and give you more of a washy kind of an effect. And have you played much with these stereo controls down here?
I did, but I kind of don't mess with those too much because I have a bad tendency of making things wider than what they're supposed to be. So it's like I get too happy with the width button, so I just leave stuff like that alone.
Right, right. So we do have a width button here. Exactly right. And we've got a pan control so you can move things around a little bit. We do have a mono switch too. So if you're worried about being too wide, put it in mono. Not quite the same thing, though, right?
I probably need to write that down. For me.
Of course, you got your delay time here in the center. We've got a feedback, which sets a number of repeats, and you can sync that up to the tempo of your song. Here we're set to quarter notes, and then we've also got these flavor controls, which allow you to give like a tape echo kind of a vibe to it, which is pretty cool.
And I like that it automatically detects the session tempo. Because some delay plugins, you still have to type in the session tempo or either really adjust the parameters. But with this one, it gets it.
Just drop it on and it's ready to go, basically. But I like some of these controls. Sauce, I like that one.
And sometimes these effects sound a little overdone, but when you add them back into the mix, you hear how it kind of just enhances the track. It's not something that you want to apply to make it stand out. You kind of want these effects to be subtle, noticeable, but not overpowering.
Right. And you can control that with the wet dry control down here. Roll this back.
So then when you unsolo it. See, you hear the delay, but it's not overpowering.
Right.
And that's what makes this plugin really cool.
It's kind of giving the talkbox kind of a sense of space, like it's sitting in a...
It's giving it some sauce.
Yeah, some sauce, exactly.
Some sauce.
So we did one other cool thing here with your track, and that's when we took that parallel aggressor plugin and we put it on the stereo master bus.
I love this plugin.
Which,
say that?
Yeah, you can go ahead and say it.
All right, I love this plugin.
On the master bus, it's pretty interesting because, again, we're taking that super squash signal and bring it up underneath, and you'd think that would kind of maybe mush the mix or take away the impact or the attack or whatever, but being able to shape it and control it and dial in just the right amount lets you, again, just add punch and beef to the mix, if you will. So let's open that plug-in up. Here's our dry. Let's roll it back to here.
So I feel like this one adds this one adds the body. The other one kind of adds like a warmth or tape saturation to it, and then you mix that with the dry signal, which normally would take 3 or 4 different buses to set up and route those plugins and send it to a channel. Like, to have that whole entire process squashed to one plugin, I think is going to be a really good game-changing tool for a lot of producers who are just now getting into it and working their way to that point, because they hear people's mixes and they go, well, how do they get those mixes like that? They don't understand some of those processes that are involved.
Right.
And to have that process available in a single plugin to get the basic understanding of it. But even if you're a professional who doesn't want to set up 3, 4 buses, you have it in one plugin. So I don't think it's not limited to just beginners. I think it applies to anyone.
Sure, I agree with you. And it's, I think, on a stereo bus application like this, the mistake would be to think that you're going to hear a huge dramatic, the whole thing's going to change or whatever. And if it does, you probably are
doing too much.
Because it's easy to add too much of that distortion in there. It gets kind of washy sounding, and you just hear noise, at that point. And if you squash too much, you lose the impact. But what I'm hearing here with the way we have it set now is it's just really tightening up
Yeah, because you don't want to suck out all the dynamic range out of a track either. You still want to have some space because we're still in the mixing process. So then if you just completely suck out all the dynamic range, then when you get to your mastering stage and all that other stuff, there's no room for them to work because you've sucked all that energy out.
Exactly right, right. So it's very different, the application we have here versus when we had it on the acoustic drums.
Right.
And we were really using it to pump that all up and make that sound a lot bigger. Here, we're tightening, we're adding some extra harmonic to it, we're doing some filtering and some punching, adding some punch to the mix as well. Yeah, man, it's the Aggressor. So very versatile plugin that can be used in a lot of places in your mix.
Yeah, and I think it also helps, again, to see the visualizing what it's doing to the track, to see it visually on both sides will help people develop their own technique of how they want to apply this to their music.
Right, it's a great way to learn about what's going on. And if you take a look in the manual, there's like 20 processors that are running under the hood here to create everything that this one plugin is doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, because if you figure with the high pass, you can still let the kick sneak through and just compress the rest and apply that signal. You can add punch to it. You can brick wall it. You can add some warmth to it. Like just the different combinations of options. Like you said, it's a lot.
Right, right. But it's easy to use, and that's what's cool about it. And that's what's cool about all these plugins we've checked out today, is whether we're working on a rock mix or we're working on more of a EDM mix or whatever style you're working in.
Yeah.
There's a plugin application here with these that'll let your mix sound better.
And at a great price point.
At a cool price point too. And they come from Denmark. Brings an international flavor.
Yeah, see that. I was trying to find the one. I was trying to. I'm like, my brain was going, what is made in Denmark that I know? And I was almost said syrup, and I was like, no, that's not it. And then I was thinking about, was it the wooden shoe?
I think that's Holland.
See, I'm off. That's why I defer to you, and I just sit on the side, and I just go. This is why he's the professional, and I'm the co-anchor.
Man, this has been fun. I've had a great time checking these plugins out with you. It's been fun to hear them in some different styles of music and some different applications and things, and I'm going to be using them. They're so easy to dial in, they sound great.
Yeah, saves me a hassle too of making 3 buses.
That's right.
So I'm always
all for it.
Always.
Man, great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
As always.
Glad to get a chance to hang out with you and work on a little bit of music.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us as well. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater, DJ E-Clyps. Check these out. You're really going to like them.
And if you have any questions, don't forget to contact your Sweetwater sales engineer and visit sweetwater.com for more info.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Click here for more videos like this.
Or visit sweetwater.com for all your music, instrument, and pro audio needs.